Stephen Colbert is here. In 2005, he left The Daily Show to host its newly created spin-off series, The Colbert Report. In 2006, he earned 3 Emmy nominations for that show. It is one of Comedy Central's highest-rated series. Here is a clip from the program. Also invited to perform as featured entertainer at the White House Correspondents Association dinner. And he was named one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in 2006. I am pleased to welcome Stephen Colbert to this table for the first time. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Pretty good. I mean, Time Magazine, that's where the biggest and the best come.
100 most influential people in the world, Charlie. Do the math. 6.5 billion people in the world. I personally speak for 65 million people.
And when you got the invitation, you didn't send it back and say, I think you've got the wrong guy.
I said that when I got there, but I want to go to the party. You get to wear a tuxedo and go with your wife.
I wanted to go, but there was no invitation.
No.
All right, let me talk about this cover.
Okay. Okay. Very nice. Who is that handsome fella?
This says what about the way you two view your shows and politics?
Well, it says something about, I think, that our two different characters. Jon deconstructs the news. Yeah. And he's, ironic and detached. Right. I falsely construct the news and am ironically attached. I'm not detached at all. I'm passionate about what I'm talking about. And Jon may point out the hypocrisy of a particular thing happening in a news story or a behavior of somebody in the news. I illustrate the hypocrisy as a character. That's Jon being Jon, and that's me not being me. That's me being the Stephen Colbert guy.
Do you know anything about his politics?
Well, I mean, I know something about his politics in terms of I know something about comedians' politics. Right. They tend to be iconoclasts, and they tend to be anti-status quo. Right. And a lot of comedy is about tearing down status or status shifts, and so. Right. I think he's probably not a big fan of authority, but Jon is admirably balanced, however people may characterize him. Every time I ever worked with him on something, and I wrote with Jon a lot when I was over at The Daily Show, he tried to perceive what was the true intention of the person speaking left or right, whether or not it was something he agreed with, because he wanted to be able to honestly mock.
Yes. You once said that there was no status you wouldn't give up for a joke.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing I have no respectability to protect. My character has a lot of respectability to protect.
Yeah. But it is, in fact, the world of a comedian's mission to get a laugh.
Sure,
That's
exactly.
what it's all about. No political mission.
The Spartans had to come, back with their shield or on it. I have to come back with my joke or on it. That's at all costs.
You said to me as you sat down that when we have that moment where he throws to you, that before they make it happen, before it goes live, or you tape it, there's great conversation there between the two of you.
Well, we test the connection between the two shows. There's a fiber optic cable that runs the 2 blocks between the Colbert Report and the Daily Show. There is literally a tube that connects the two buildings, and we just talk back and forth. We just shoot the breeze in order to make sure that technically they can do it, and we catch up on each other's day. It's the only time we really get a chance to talk these days.
Like what happened to you yesterday in O'Hare.
Exactly how they
And if I had listened in over the last several years, what would I have learned about the evolution of your relationship?
Jon is very generous, and he treats me like a peer.
And you treat him like?
Well, I'm happy to say that I'm very comfortable to talk to him like a peer now too, because he's so supportive, very genuine guy.
Some speculated for a while, hey, you're the youngest of 11, so you know about big sister, big brother.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I am.
And that you somehow in the beginning thought of him as like a big brother. Almost.
I think I still do. I mean, he comes before I do. He's got bigger numbers.
Because there are more people available at that hour.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not just it. Jon has, through a lot of hard work with him and his staff, built that show, and we have a lot to learn from it. And not just in the comedy, but the way he and the rest of the staff, the way they manage their day. It's a hard thing to do a strip show. And
tell me about it.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm sorry about that. It's hard to do a strip show, and I've learned a great deal about staying focused and not worrying about what happens outside the building, and just get the work done every day. And that's the most important thing you can do.
As this is my life.
This is everything. There's no time for anything else. I mean, who has time for affairs?
So
if someone has time for affair, they're not working.
So no matter
enough.
how gorgeous she is, no matter whatever problems you might have at home, no time.
Is she funny?
But has the relationship gotten closer over the years? I mean, you were there for 5 years.
Absolutely. My wife knew Jon before I knew Jon.
Because she was in the business?
Yeah, she was an actress in New York, and he was Jon Leibowitz, and he was this quiet guy.
He was Jon Stewart Leibowitz.
Yes, but no one knew that. And he sat in the corner, and he wasn't particularly funny.
Is that right?
Yeah.
When did he get funny?
During that period of time when she didn't know him.
The idea for the show.
Yeah.
How did it come about?
Well, this is the only show I think that ever started as a promo for itself. We did something on The Daily Show called The Colbert Report, and it was a fake advertisement for a show that didn't exist. And it was me trying to ape the, who is loudest is rightest idea of late night cable news or primetime cable news. And we just loved doing them. We did 4 or 5 of these bumpers, essentially, for the show. And then when I'd been at The Daily Show, we'd finished the 2004 election. And I thought, well, I've been through 2 election cycles here. I've been here a long time. I'm not sure. I still love it. I'm not sure how much longer I will love it. And but I still wanted to stay working with Jon some way. And he was going to develop a show for Comedy Central. And Comedy Central wanted to know if I wanted to do a show. And Ben Carlin, who was also working with Jon on The Daily Show, the 3 of us said, let's create this show together, and we can't think of a better idea than those bumpers. So let's just make that real. Let's take the advertisement and make it actually advertise something.
What part of it do you like the most? I mean, some say that it's the interview section. Others say it's simply writing it and giving it its edge at the top.
I thought that the interviews would be the thing I hated the most, because it was the thing it was the biggest question mark for me, because interviewing someone in character, as I'm sure if Martin Short would probably say the same thing as Jiminy Glick, or Sacha Baron Cohen would say this as Ali G or Borat or anything. I don't know. I've never spoken to him about it, but I'm not an assassin. Even though my character is very aggressive and I have a satirical intent, I don't want them to feel unwelcome. I don't want them to walk out and go, what did I just walk into? And so I thought, how am I going to slide the intensity of this character when I'm speaking to someone, like someone who is sort of politically adept and can defend themselves like Bill Kristol? You're going to dial it all the way up.
Right.
But if you're having, the head of the Human Genome Project on, who also happens to be a Christian, who's got the book The Language of God, you're going to dial it down a little bit, because he's not a punching bag. And I was afraid I couldn't do that. I love it. It's my favorite thing in the show.
That's what I heard. You love that the most.
I just love it. Because it's improvisation. That's why. Yeah. I started out as an improviser, and I don't know what's going to happen in the interview. All that can happen in the written part of the show is I cannot do it as well as we wrote it.
Exactly.
It can only be a failure, because it's like I've heard...
In your mind, it couldn't have been better.
I hear the symphony.
Exactly.
I heard composers are like that. Please don't play it. It's perfect up here.
I know where it is.
And my writers do such a good job, and I've got wonderful head writers, and all I can do is have to apologize later, like, guys, I'm sorry I blew that joke.
But your skill as an ad-libber, some say, the combination of sort of as they say, an encyclopedic mind and ad-libbing is what it is in the end you do best, i.e., in terms of talent, skill. Yes? You think?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't observe. I'm not an observer. So I started off as an improviser. And when you improvise, I was taught, at least, that the idea is about listening and responding to what the other person is doing. And being willing to surrender what your plan was for the discovery of the moment. And jump down the rabbit hole was how it was described to me. Alice didn't intend to go there.
This is the guy, Del Close.
Exactly. That's the first guy I learned from.
Right.
And
if you see a rabbit hole, jump in it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't step over the crack on the sidewalk. Jump down the crack on the sidewalk. There are no mistakes, only discoveries. And so that not only in studio interviews, but when I interview people in the field, is always the best thing for me. Is if I have that moment, I feel like I've been able to bring something to the comedy that it's not predictable.
Jon has said this, and I think you just alluded to it. It is the notion that somehow, and people say this about villains when they're portraying them on the screen in movies, you've got to find something with characters, villainous characters, something people can grab hold to that they like. Otherwise, they'll just be turned off by the meanness. Here, Jon has said you've always got to find the decency that what makes you different, say, than Barat, you know, and all the anti-Semitism and that it propelled that character. Is that there's a decency here. That's what you mean.
I'd have to see Borat to see if there's a decency behind it, because I haven't seen it yet. Yeah. But I don't know if I'm a decent person, but I know that my intention is comedy. Yeah. And I am having a really good time when I do it. And I think the audience can see that. I mean, they see it overtly because
But is that a substitute for decency, simply to be having a good time? Everybody who's ever done television said to me, make sure the audience knows how much, A, you know how to do it, you belong here, and you're having fun doing it.
Yes, and you're saying that's different than decency. I understand.
No, yeah, that's a little bit different. So it is different than letting people know having fun. That there is some way. Well, you have to make see that you're a guy.
You have to make consistent choices.
Appealing about him too.
You have to make consistent choices that are not inhumane. Yeah, that's all. I guess try, and I don't always do it well. I mean, I make choices sometimes. I think like, oh, that was actually sort of maybe that was too mean-spirited, and that was too in service of getting a laugh. It was a little cheap and worth going for. But if you try to maintain your humanity when you do the jokes and not play on tragedy or cynically dismiss people's beliefs, then I think people will hopefully respect your attempt to stay civil. Meanwhile, I get to hide behind a character face, and so I get away with a lot that maybe Jon wouldn't, because they would judge Jon. Yeah. And I have the layer. I have the protective mask.
The amazing thing about your show for me, I mean, Jon has a great supporting cast. You were one of them. I mean, he is there being himself, essentially. Yes?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a comedic face on, but
you've created a character.
It's Jon.
It's Jon. Yeah. And you've created a character who's on screen every moment of that show. Yeah. There's not a moment that you're not there.
We're trying to find moments where not like... we had Paul Dinello go down as my building manager to open the Stephen Colbert Museum and Gift Shop in Colbert County, Alabama, in Escambia. So I was very excited, like, oh, there's a way. There's 3 minutes of not me.
When you created him, were you thinking of Bill O'Reilly?
Bill O'Reilly is a real model. I mean, I was thinking of the idea of passion and emotion and certainty over information, and that what you feel in
passion and emotion,
what you feel in your gut.
Yeah.
As I said in the first word we did, which was sort of the thesis statement of the whole show, however long it lasts, is that sentence, that one word. That's more important to, I think, the public at large, and not just the people who provide it in primetime cable, than information. If you can make information also have passion and appeal to the gut, that's great. But it's not important. Information is not important at all. You've really got to appeal to people. And so O'Reilly is a model because he's the king, not because he's the only one. I mean, other people went in the mix.
Did you set out to be a serious actor?
Yes, I did.
And what caused the transition?
I was recurrently, habitually paid to do comedy, and found out I had a good time. When you're starting off as, I went to Northwestern University. I have a degree in communications, and I was classically trained, and I took ballet and did the Meisner technique, and an actor prepares, and I had a beard, and I wore black, and everything you want, in a young actor. And I really wanted to be Hamlet, not just act Hamlet, and share my misery with the world. But I wasn't actually enjoying it that much. I would do straight theater in Chicago and experimental sort of avant-garde black box theater, and Chicago's great. You can do that there. You can get some friends, put up a show, and the Sun-Times or the Trib will come. It's not hard to start a theater company there. But I found that when I did comedy and I messed up on stage, like if I blew a line on stage in comedy, there'd be laughter from backstage at my failure. And I found that so much healthier than if I blew a line in drama. Because you'd go backstage and people were going, how's it going out there? Gosh, sounds awfully quiet. You know? And I thought, oh, I like these people. I like these people more than these people. And I surrendered my need for importance. Do you know what I mean? I surrendered my need to have status.
For the sheer joy of hearing people laugh at what you did.
Yes, yes, it's far more important. I decided that I had to be a comedian when it was. I loved when people laughed at me too, but a young lady went out on stage to do a blackout, which is like a 30-second scene, and it was supposed to be for the whales. She's supposed to be in a coffee shop playing the guitar, saying, "I'd like to do a song for the whales," and then the scene goes, the blackout goes, that she starts going. That's her song for the whales.
Yes.
So she goes out to do it. And it's not, you know, it's not a great thing, but it's foolproof.
Yeah.
And she went out there and she forgot to say that it was for the whales. She just said, "I'd like to do a song." And she started clicking and whistling and got silence. And we couldn't figure out why she wasn't getting the laugh. Like, this is, you never don't get a score with whales.
Right.
And then she said, "Oh, I forgot it's for whales." And we went out for grabs backstage. It was the Second City. I just started working there. And we were weeping and hugging each other and lying on the floor. And the audience could hear us. And she was laughing on stage. And I thought, I have to do this for a living. I have to work in something where this is almost as good as doing it right.
Well, I just think that most people I know would love to have the capacity to make people laugh. I mean, I was an appreciation for Johnny Apple, my friend, earlier this week. And somebody got up and said, "I do maudlin well," because they'd asked him to be funny, to remember funny stories, but I don't do funny well. And he went on to try to be funny and to be funny reasonably well. But his basic instinct was, I can be serious. I can tell you about the greatness of something, but I can't make you laugh. I don't have that instinct. I think some people have the instinct to do this. Do you think, when you look back to being the youngest of 11, to growing up and needing to compete for attention, that humor was a way?
I don't know why humor was valued in my family, but we were a humorocracy. You know, the funny person in the room at the moment was
first of all, your father was Irish family, so there's something.
My name is French, you know, maybe. Right. We don't know. My grandfather didn't really talk about it.
You never knew whether it was Colbert?
Colbert or Colbert, you know.
What did your dad say, Colbert?
My father said Colbert, but always wanted to say Colbert. But his father didn't understand that desire and lacked the pretentious gene that I have. And didn't want him to do it, so my father, out of respect, never tried to do it. But he said to us, you know, you make up your own mind.
Yeah. And so when did you make up your mind?
On flying, well, I toyed with it, but I was flying to Northwestern in Chicago to go to theater school.
Right. Having spent 2 years at Hampton, Sydney, and Virginia.
Right, exactly. And I was flying, I transferred schools. I didn't know Chicago. Nobody knew me there. And I thought, well, if I'm ever going to do it, it's going to be now. And I actually got bumped up to first class, and I sat next to an astronaut, actually. And
which one? Do you remember?
I think his last name was Corley, and he never flew because it was right before the shuttle blew up, and he wasn't on the shuttle. And I talked to him about it. And
what I should call myself, Colbert or Colbert?
Yes. And he goes, "Well, I think you know." And so I took off as Colbert, and
so when you got off the plane, you were Colbert.
I was Colbert. That was it.
Right, sorry. Your dad died in a plane crash.
I did,
with two brothers.
Yeah.
When you were, what, 10 or 11?
I was 10.
Yeah.
In 1974.
Other than making you know that your house is a much sadder place, what impact did it have?
Oh, gosh. It was 32 years ago now, and I couldn't begin to catalog what impact it has upon you to have your father and your two nearest brothers die. My family goes Jimmy, Eddie, Mary, Billy, Margaret, Tommy, Jay, Lulu, Paul, Peter, Stephen, and Paul and Peter died. Yeah. And so then it became a gap of almost 10 years between me and
they were how old? They were
14.
Yeah, so they
and 16, and I was 10. And Dad, obviously. And I don't know. it's kind of, I've said it before, but I think it's kind of facile to say I wanted to make my mom laugh or make my mom happy. And that's not an inconsequential part of it.
Exactly.
I'm sure that was part of it. But I don't necessarily think that's what made me a comedian. I think it gave me, I certainly didn't work in school I don't think I did homework but a dozen times between 10 and 18. I started reading books incessantly. Like after the funeral of Dad and the boys, I had terrible blazing headache, and I went back to my brother Ed's house. They were buried in Annapolis, and we were up in D.C., and I was staying at his house, and I went to a quiet room to try to get rid of my headache. I lay down, and there was a science fiction book on a shelf, and I just picked it off the shelf, and I read pretty much a book a day after that.
So it's been a lifelong habit.
Yes, and I learned things at school incidentally, not because I did any work. Nothing seemed important after that. And all the concerns and any threat that any teacher could, present to me seemed pretty ridiculous after they died. And so, and on one level it made me, you might say, lazy, because you need threats to have discipline, and nothing seemed threatening to me.
At the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
I remember it.
When you walked away, what did the president say? Good job, nice job, good way to go.
He said, he stood up after I finished, and he shook my hand and said, well done.
Well done. With sincerity.
I assume so.
Yeah. And did you think that?
Yeah, I was very happy with how it went.
The response was amazing, wasn't it? It was a
very
polarizing response.
That was the most surprising thing to me is, if you watch it on air, it's hard to tell what was going on in the room because I was at the focal point of the room at the podium there, and there are 3,000 people in that room.
Yeah,
and
it's a huge room.
When the jokes went really well, it was a real high, and that's fantastic. And when the jokes didn't go all that well, about 1,000 people laughed, which still felt pretty good. So I never had any sense that what was happening was upsetting anyone. And or rallying anyone. Do you know what I mean? Just as importantly. And after it was over, it wasn't until people weren't making eye contact with me when I sat down. I sat back down under Helen Thomas, and she was like, "That was wonderful, thank you." I'm like, "Oh, thank you." I did every joke to her before I said it on the air, by the way. She was my dinner guest. I did the entire thing to her. She was fantastic.
God bless her.
But people were.
But after they were looking away, they weren't
making eye contact with me.
Did you say? I was
thinking to myself, what's going on?
Did you ask him how to do? Did you like it? How would it? None of that.
No, people were just weren't. I mean, Tony Snow was very nice.
Did you know immediately or the next morning that it had become a kind of cause célèbre?
It was no. I went home that night and I just went to bed. I was just exhausted, and then the next day, I was packing up and traveling back to New York, and it wasn't until I came into work on Monday that I met with my writers, and I thanked the guys who helped work on it with me, and somebody said, "Well, you should. Have you looked at the internet?"
You said
because they saw that I was being sort of blasé about it, and I said, "No." I said, "You should. I'll send you some links," and so they sent me a few links, and. I looked at a couple of websites, positive and negative,
right.
And because there was nothing in the press, and the sort of classical press, and then I asked people to stop sending me stuff because I thought, well, it seems very divisive.
Is it possible when you think about the character you've created that people will see the character forever?
That's okay.
You don't mind?
I'm very happy
if they do that.
Yeah, man, I'd be very lucky.
Because
I'd be very lucky. If I get to do this long enough that it's indelible for people, then the show asks me to do everything I know how to do. It's not like I'm thinking, oh, I can't wait to go do movies. I wouldn't mind doing movies, but it's not. This is not a stepping stone. I really like what I'm doing,
and would do it as long as it is fresh and as long as you get a kick out of getting up in the morning to go do it.
Yeah. And I can imagine that it would last a while. I mean, if we can keep it takes a great deal of energy, as we said before, but as long as I can keep up the energy to do it, like The Daily Show, and one of the things I think that keeps The Daily Show fresh, and I say Weekend Update too on Saturday Night Live that keeps people interested in that, and that's even if we're a shadow of the news. And so we change and we transform as the news does.
And people say to me,
so that's what keeps you young, Charlie.
Right, exactly. People say to me, "You're going to burn out." How could you be burning out when you get up every morning?
Yeah.
And you can either talk to John Burns from Baghdad, Stephen Colbert about his own passion for his work,
or
some comedian. Yes, indeed. But how could you ever not want to do that? Everybody that I know who does what we do, whatever variation. Loves it. I know of no one who said, "Why am I doing this?" Except for the money.
John said to me when we first started working on the show together, the show sort of really germinated from conversations between me, Jon Stewart, and Ben Carlin. And just a couple very quick, maybe hour-long conversations. I typed up what they were. I still have them on my desktop that says show ideas.
Right.
And essentially, we're still playing out those conversations that we had. And he said, "What interests you?"
Exactly.
What interests you? Make it about what interests you, and you won't get tired of it. And so I talk about things that interest me. I talk about religion a great deal on my show, and that interests me. And
it's just
you can't get tired of it.
It's giving voice to your own curiosity.
As long as you still have curiosity, I can't imagine not wanting to do this.
Why did Ben leave the show?
Ben has been doing The Daily Show for 8 years, and for the last year,
and then added yours.
Added my show.
But
he is.
Why didn't you just give up one and go back? Or was there something about?
He actually left my show almost 6 months ago.
There's no story here that Ben left because of anything other than he was tired.
Ben left because Ben wanted to leave. It's hard for those of us who have to do our shows without Ben, but maybe he'll come back. I hope he does.
You think he just wants to rest and he might come back? There's no conflict here. There's no story other than one person needing a rest.
My understanding is that Ben Carlin needs to go be with his wife in Italy and have a baby.
Could there be a better story than that?
I don't know. You'd have to talk to Ben about that, but it's a very difficult, as I said before, it's a very difficult and complicated thing that we do, keeping it fresh. And I think that a lot has gone on Ben's shoulders. And for John's show and for my show, he has been responsible for a great deal of setting the editorial voice. And he is driven like nobody I know. I mean, he busted his knee in a motorcycle accident and then ran a half marathon as part of a triathlon team and shattered one of his shin bones by doing it. Like ran on a broken shin bone, like for half the race. Jesus. I think he sees that it's time to. I think it's time for him to maybe not do everything all at once.
So he may be back.
Well, I know he'll be back for both shows. I mean, he's consulting producer on both shows, and I think because my show is still newer, I'll get more of him. He's going to be here. He's going to be with me at least for the next 6 months. I know that. That's my understanding.
When people say to me that this little show we do, and I think sometimes that guys like you look at our show and say, and this is not asking your comment, saying, what do they think they're doing? That people just want to listen to people talk? Rather than go for a laugh.
Oh, that we say this about
exactly.
you guys?
You know what I'm saying?
No, I say, God, if only I could just talk to people and not go for a laugh. Sometimes,
No.
Because I would sometimes, not so much that I think that what I'm doing is harder, but that
it is harder.
No, I don't know if it necessarily is, because, first of all, I'm not talking to somebody for an hour.
Right.
But second of all, is that sometimes I really just want my natural curiosity to run wild with a guest.
Yeah,
but it kills me that I can't know more about what they're talking about.
Because you have to go for the laugh. Create the laugh.
Yeah, I'm there to be funny. And sometimes I really just want to talk about the Human Genome Project.
Yeah. Yeah, I have them somehow. I mean, the reason I get over the fact that I think you guys would look at us and say, what do they think that everybody wants to watch just people talking, not going for a joke? It is the notion that eavesdropping on conversation is not a bad thing. It's a fun thing to do.
Well, listen, I watch this show. I watch the real news.
Right.
I rely on it.
You said a most amazing thing. When you met O'Reilly,
yeah,
I love this because I think about this too.
Yeah.
When you met O'Reilly at the Time 100,
yeah,
you said, "Jesus, take me. I'm ready to go."
This is it. I've peaked.
Jesus.
Well, it wasn't just that I met him.
Yeah.
It was
that he liked it, or
that he watched my show.
Yeah.
He told me, he gave me some advice about the show.
He says he is research for your show. That's what he says.
He is research for my show. I mean, I don't watch O'Reilly.
Yeah.
But I certainly, Sean Hannity, Aaron Brown, Anderson Cooper.
Because of the way he dresses mainly, or
Anderson Cooper, he's crisp, and that's not just dress.
Crisp.
I could have the same suits, but I wouldn't be as bright as a new dime. Do you know the way he is?
Yes.
You know, in the middle of a war zone, just like spit and polish.
Perfect.
You know?
Yes, exactly.
And no one's ever made Squalor.
He doesn't have a suit on to do it.
Good.
He just has it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And also Stone Phillips, Geraldo Rivera, all those guys. I should give a royalty check to. But O'Reilly is special.
Now, what about Geraldo? What does he contribute to the character?
He has a sense of mission. You really have a sense, I think, that, and I've said this before, so this might be repeating to somebody who had seen me interviewed before, but I read once that when he goes jogging in Central Park, he's like a battleship on patrol. You know? I'd love to see somebody get mugged, you know, because I'd bring the hammer down. You know, it's like, wow. And you see that in his work, you know.
Right.
You see that from his earlier, you know, advocacy journalism when he was a younger man.
Up at the mental
institution,
hospital,
yes.
right.
And up till now, you know, he's just with the absolute force of his justice, slowly turning the ship of destiny, just a few degrees.
I hear it. So there is that same kind of mindset.
Right.
We're
changing things. I am not, unlike Jon Stewart. Let me tell you the difference between me and Jon Stewart, Charlie. Can I do that?
Yes.
Can I call it Charlie?
Yes, please.
Good. John demurs. John says he doesn't have an impact, okay? Yeah. We don't want to be influential. I'll tell you what, I want to change the world. I change it a little bit every day. Not much, but give me the wheel. Give me the ball, God. I'll run it down the line.
How can you change the world, though?
By catching it in the headlights of my justice.
That's good.
You know what I mean?
That's a good line, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
But I remind you of what Peter Cook said, and I only know this because of you.
Okay.
Cabaret satire had never been better than it was
in the Weimar.
Pre-Weimar, yes, Weimar Republic, before Hitler, and it just stopped Hitler in his tracks.
Exactly.
As Peter Cook said.
I never forget that.
It shows you the impact of comedy.
Right. Well, I mean, I would say in the lead up to the Iraq War, the Daily Show was highly dubious of the idea.
Yes, it didn't seem to stop it, did it?
Didn't seem to stop it. I mean, not that it was trying to stop it, but that's just it. If you're going for the joke, and if you're going to be successful at all in comedy, you have to go for what's funny. Yeah. You can't be disappointed if you actually don't change things, because it can't have been your intention.
It's great to have you here.
Oh, it's nice to be here.
Thank you so much. Stephen Colbert of the Colbert Report on Comedy Central, following The Daily Show, where he spent 5 years as a fake newsman. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.